Welcome to yet another episode of Black Pill History Month. Today, we are going to mine political gold. Oh, that's right. We are going to mine some political gold today. Mm-hmm. Hope y'all ready. Brother Zeke, what up, man? Adrian Stefano, what up, man? Yeah, y'all gonna like this one. Y'all definitely gonna like this one. Yeah, y'all get up here, man, for this latest installment of Black Pill History Month. Science got what up, man? What Usher song did they play? KC writes, dog, I just seen that same video of that inmate beating up that guard on TikTok with Usher, yeah, playing in the background. Oh, yeah. They saw what up, man. Niggas wild as hell. Hell no, for choosing that song. Y'all get up in here, man. I guess niggas out here running manholes, gifts, or whatever. All right, man, let's go. Let's go. So the left has a history in this country of claiming to champion the rights of the little guy, right? Working class people. And in that cohort of people that they claim to represent and claim to champion are so-called black people, right? Mr. O, what up, man? Stephen, what up? They claim to represent poor, disenfranchised black folks, right? And for years, the political left, working in at the behest of the Communist Party in Russia, has been on a almost century long campaign at this present moment to woo black people into communism, right? Ever since W.E.B. Du Bois went to Russia and came back in 1927, there has been a constant effort to enlist so-called black people into communism. And of course, this effort has also been uptaken by the educational system and the media, right? And so we are in an era in history where a lot of black people seem to be socialized as communists. A lot of people will tell you the line about how conservative black people are supposed to be. On some issues, yeah, black people are conservative, but it seems like on a lot of socio-political issues, well, economic and political issues, black people are totally communistic to and through, right? So in this video, we are going to explore the racist roots of the political left in this country. Some of y'all might recognize this person on the screen. A lot of y'all might not. This is Lucy Parsons, which was one of the original members of the American Communist Party. Lucy Parsons, born circa 1851, died March 7, 1942, was an American social anarchist and later anarcho-communist. Well known throughout her life for her fiery speeches and writings, she was a founding member of the Industrial Workers of the World. There are different versions of Parsons' early life. She herself says she was of mixed Mexican and Native American ancestry. Historians believe she was born to an African American slave, possibly in Virginia, then perhaps married a black freedman in Texas. It ain't nothing about this woman right here that look Mexican. Nothing. But they are all claiming to be mixed with something. It's funny that all of a sudden now you got all this ICE activity. Motherfuckers ain't talking about they mixed with a bunch of shit no more. I noticed that. She met the activist Albert Parsons in Texas and claimed to have married him, although no records have been found. They moved to Chicago together in late 1873, and her ideology was shaped by the harsh repression of the workers in the Chicago Railroad strike of 1877, right? Now, wait a minute. She argued for labor organization and class struggle, writing polemical texts and speaking at events. She joined the Working Men's Party of the United States and later the Knights of Labor. She set up the Chicago Women's Union with her friend Lizzie Swank and other women. Parsons had 2 children and worked in Chicago as a seamstress, later opening her own shop. What, ain't that a bitch? You know, I always tell communists, whenever they talk this bloody revolution shit, I always tell communists, don't you think that's going a bit too far? And they say, oh no. I said, wait a minute. So you don't think that's going too far? You don't think that you engaging in a bloody revolution, a civil war, to overturn what you see as being wrong, you don't think that that's... I say, wait a minute. Well, let me ask you this. You're a communist, so, you know, you see socialism as an intermediate step. You want to control the means of production, right? And they say, yeah, but we don't want to control the means of production to be tyrants. We want to control the means of production so things can be more equitable, and so we can stop class struggle and people and this is an inequitable division of resources. Okay, I got you. And so you see socialism as an intermediate step, and the final step is communism. in which it's a moneyless and stateless society that people just do, live off an honor code, right? Yeah. But the intermediate step now is controlling the means of production, right? Yeah. So then they get angry when I say, hey, well, if you want to control the means of production, why don't you just file an LLC and start a business? Oh, you're trying to be a fucking smart ass. Well, I will be, then I will become an oppressor. How? How would you become an oppressor? You're not enslaving anybody. You have capital that people want to come work for, so they come work for you. It's an even exchange of labor. And if whatever your business is offering is not enough for somebody to retire off of, well, then they don't have to be bound to be employed by you. They can always use their term of employment with you as a stepping stone. You do realize that, right? So all it would take is for you want to control the means of production. You ain't got to go kill nobody. You ain't got to hold no protests. You ain't got to vandalize nothing. All you got to do is go to your Secretary of State and file an LLC and get some investors. I wouldn't even recommend getting a business loan. Get you some investors. And then build your company. It's that simple. Ain't that easier than getting killed by the government? Oh, you're fucking smart ass. Yeah, whatever, man. I bet you it's easy to file some paperwork than it is to fight a motherfucking insurgent war that you can't win. There's Scotty. What do you want, Scotty? I ain't even been on that long. What? Come on, man. Why are you doing this? You got to get out. 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 And let me finish. You got to get down. You got to get out. Science got rights. Some of the socialists can be extreme at times, but they are right on the imbalance of wealth with these businesses. American capitalism is extremely exploitative. I mean, if you want more regulation, then say that. But to if you thinking that getting rid of capitalism is gonna cause some type of utopia, you sadly mistaken. Sure, we can have more regulations. You know what, science guy? I'll propose this. Huge tax breaks for employee-owned companies. Right? Extreme regulations on private equity, right? I think that will go a lot further to try to correct the wealth imbalance that you're talking about than socialist reforms. And I'll be willing to go toe to toe with Mr. Z on that, with BGS, with anybody on that. If you vastly increase regulations on private equity and make it unprofitable to have that shit, and then you offer huge tax breaks for companies that are employee owned, where the employees are the shareholders or whatever. Hey, and I'm gonna tell you even better one. The people that run private equity firms will not be able to claim that regulating them are bills of attainder. You know why? Because it's already been decided a long time ago that antitrust laws are constitutional. Yep. There you go. See how I offer simple solutions? Maybe some of the bigger channels will start talking about it now that I said it. Parsons had 2 children as a seamstress, later opening her own shop. After her husband was executed in 1887 following his conviction for being a ringleader in the Haymarket affair, she became internationally famous as an anarchist speaker, touring frequently across the United States and visiting England. She wrote articles and edited radical newspapers. She was helped financially by Pioneer Aid and Support Association and wrote the biography Life of Albert Parsons with her young lover, Martin Latcher. Decades following the 1917 revolution, Parsons moved towards communism. The Chicago police regarded her as a dangerous political figure and attempted many times to stop her from speaking publicly. She continued her activism as she grew older, clashing with the anarchist Emma Goldman over their differing attitudes to free love and supporting challenges to miscarriages of justice in the case of Angelo Herndon, Tom Mooney, and the Scottsboro Boys. She died at a house fire on March 7, 1942. Her partner, George Markstall, returned to find the building on fire and was able to rescue her. He died the following day. She was buried in the German Waldheim Cemetery, where the Haymarket Martyrs Monument stands. After her death, Parsons was primarily referenced as the wife of Albert Parsons until recent scholarship and 2 book-length biographies have commemorated her own achievements. The Chicago Park District named a park on Belmont Avenue after her in 2004. Early life. Little is known about Parsons' early life. Historian Caroline Ashball states in her biography of Parsons that she was born the daughter of a slave in 1849 and possibly called Lucy Gathings through her life. Parsons also used the surnames Carter, Diaz, Gonzalez, and Hull. Why? There is confusion over Parsons' middle name, while historians such as Philip S. Foner give it as Eldine. Both the birth certificate of her daughter and her own birth certificate supply the name of Ella. Parsons herself told very different versions of her own life history. She denied being of African heritage and said that she had Mexican and Native American parents, alternated between which one was which. When later events made her famous, national newspapers tried to investigate her Texas heritage, but were unable to do so. One story she told that she was born in Texas to Marie Delgado, who was of Spanish Mexican ancestry, and John Waller, who was Muskogee. Well, she is a nigga then, because Muskogee Indians are niggas. I guess this Wikipedia entry was made before the whole indigenous conversation. But she was black then, because if her father was a Muskogee native, she was black. Hey, tell me about it, Mr. O. Tell me about it. Even in the 1800s, Keisha's wanted to be an exotical. It's fucking ridiculous. Her entry in the American National Biography suggests that she may have been a daughter to Pedro Diaz Gonzalez and his wife Marie. Contemporary reporters speculated about her background. In her biography of Parsons, the social historian Jacqueline Jones stated that she was born a slave in Virginia and in 1863, at the age of 12, was bound to McLennan County in Texas by her owner, Thomas J. Taliaferro, along with her mother and brother. On this account, she was called Lucia. She then moved to Waco, Texas, where people were reinventing their identities as they moved from their past lives as slaves or Confederate soldiers. She began living with and possibly married a black freedman called Oliver Benton formerly known as Oliver Gatlings, because slaves were often given the surnames of their owners. He was around 35 or 36, and she was around 16 to 17 years old. Benton paid $1.50 a month for her education at a local black school, and they may have had a child together who died at a young age. Ashball suggests that Parsons, like Benton, was former slaves of the Gatton brothers. Now that man sent her to school, and all she learned is that she was better than a black man. Seemed like. Since Philip Gatlins had a daughter named Lucy in 1849, Parsons may have been named after her. While slave records do not preserve names, the Gatlins brothers did own each two slave girls in 1860 that would have been around Parsons' age. Whilst in Waco, Lucy met Albert Parsons. He was a white man who had fought in the American Civil War on the losing Confederate side. Then, after the war, had become a radical Republican, agitating for black civil rights. He was shot in the leg for helping black people register to vote. It is doubtful they were ever married, since no records have been found. At the time, there were anti-miscegenation laws. They both claimed to be married in Austin in 1872. They a goddamn lie, talking about they was married in Austin, Texas in 1872 at the height of Jim Crow. They a goddamn lie. Let's fast forward this. Lucy and Albert Parsons moved to Chicago at the end of 1873. The industrial city was growing rapidly. The couple lived in poor working class slum tenements around Larrabee Street and North Avenue on the north side. Shit, that's prime real estate now. Albert Parsons works as a compositor for the newspapers, and Lucy Parsons earned money as a seamstress. The couple became involved in the Social Democratic Working Man's Party of North America and later the Working Man's Party of the United States. Parsons also demonstrated her willingness to stand for her rights by twice taking white people to court in 1875 over an unpaid bill and a neighbor disturbance, respectively. When the Chicago Railroad strike of 1877 occurred as part of the Great Upheaval, Albert Parsons and his fellow socialists, Philip Van Patten and George Schilling, spoke to a crowd of 25,000 people. He was then fired from his job at the Chicago Times and blacklisted. He had a gun put to his head by two unknown men when he went to the Chicago Tribune to ask for work. Lucy Parsons was forced to get a job to support her family and started selling suits and dresses. She expanded the business into Parsons and Company, manufacturers of ladies and children's clothing, opening a workspace at 306 Mohawk Street. We'll see what I mean. All you gotta do is file an LLC. You own the means production. Employing her now blacklisted partner. Parsons' first list of writings to be published were letters to the editor of the Socialist concerning the hunger and poverty of the working class. She began to lecture after the birth of her son, Albert Parsons Jr., in September 1879. She wrote her maiden name as Carter and Virginia as her place of birth. Oh my God. Parsons' political perspective was evolving, and she was determined that her personal problems were insignificant since only social movements could achieve change. Boy, these types are always like that. Angela Davis, all these motherfuckers is like that. They won't even take care of their own kids, but they want to change the world. Won't even take care of their own fucking kids. She was more brilliant than her partner, campaigning against voting at a time when she didn't have the right to do it. Campaigning against voting? What the fuck? Her observations of the 1877 strike had taught her that workers were powerful when united. She developed her social anarchist approach, in which she condoned political violence, urged self-defense and against racial violence, and called for class struggle against religion. Alongside women such as Elizabeth Chambers Morgan, Elizabeth Flynn Rogers, Alzina Stevens, Lizzie Swank, she helped set up the Chicago Working Women's Union, attended meetings while pregnant at a time where childbearing women were expected to stay home. Swank became a good friend of Parsons. As soon as the Knights of Labor decided to admit women, they both joined. The WWU encouraged women to unionize and promote the 8-hour workday. On April 20th, 1881, Parsons gave birth to her second child, Lulu Etta, who was to die of lymphedema at the age of 8. Damn. In 1883, the insurrectionary anarchist Johann Most visited Chicago and met the Parsons family. In November, Albert Parsons founded the American Group of Chicago as the local wing of the International Working People's Association. Lucy attended meetings sometimes in her own home, developing left-wing politics. When the IWPA published the radical newspaper The Alarm in 1884, she was one of the main contributors, theorizing that violence was inevitable in a class struggle and that trade unions were the engine of the revolution. She wrote texts which included Our Civilization Isn't Worth Saving, The Factory Child, and Their Wrongs Portray Her, and Rescue Demanded, and the Negro. Let him leave politics to the politician and prayers to the preacher, her article says. To tramps, the unemployed, the disinherited, the miserable was reprinted from The Alarm and sold more than 10,000 copies between May and November 1885. In the same year, Parsons published Dynamite, the only voice the oppressors of the people can understand. Wow. In the Denver Labor Inquirer, inspired by most production of propaganda of the deed, on April 28th, 1885, Parsons and Lizzie Holmes led an IWPA march to protest outside a banquet at the Board of Trade building, which was newly constructed at the cost of $2 million. During this period, Parsons and her partner will often address crowds of 1,000 to 5,000 people on Sundays at the shore of Lake Michigan. Labor organizer Mother Jones attended the speeches and advocated too much violence. The Haymarket Affair, right? On Saturday, May 1st, 1886, the workers went on strike across the U.S. and Chicago. The Parsons family led a demonstration of 80,000 people down Michigan Avenue, demanding the 8-hour workday. 2 days later, Chicago police and private security guards known as Pinkertons attacked striking workers in the McCormick Reaper factory, shooting at least one person dead. On May 4th, Lucy Parsons organized a meeting to support striking sewing women and asked Albert Parsons to join her on the same night in nearby Haymarket Square. 176 police officers had ordered the demonstration to disperse when a bomb was thrown from the crowd. In what became known as the Haymarket Affair, the police opened fire, shooting at least 7 workers dead, while 1 police officer died and 6 others succumbed to their injuries later. It is likely that in the chaos, the officers were killed by police bullets. The Parsons family was at Zepf's Hall nearby and heard the blast. Albert fled the city, first staying with Lizzie and William Holmes in Geneva, Illinois, and then moving to Waukesha, Wisconsin, where he became a laborer and resided with Daniel Holmes. On May 5th, after the bombing, Lucy Parsons was in the office of the Arbeiter-Zeitung when it was raided by police officers without a search warrant. They arrested the entire staff, including Parsons, who the officer called a black bitch. She was released without charge since the police were hoping she would lead them to a partner. Over the next 6 months, she was briefly detained several times. Other mass arrests and unlawful searches were made by Julius S. Grinnell, the Illinois Attorney General, will go to prosecute the case. Make the raids first, then look up the law afterwards, he said. Lucy Parkins, oh no, she said, Lucy Parkins commented in the Denver Labor Inquirer, the raids were extensive. A grand jury announced the charges against 31 men on May 27, including murder charges against the 10 and the most fervent advocates of propaganda of the deed, including Lucy Parsons and Lizzie Holmes, had not been charged. The attitude of the U.S. labor movement towards those accused was mixed, with some militants voicing support and others concerned by the loss of life. While Albert wasn't hiding, he wrote to Lucy Parsons, asking her to talk to the lawyer William P. Black and discuss the conditions of his surrender. Black encouraged her to bring him to court, believing there was little chance of conviction. His chief aide, William A. Foster, disagreed, thinking it was best that Parsons remain free. On the first day of trial, Albert Parsons appeared, and after spending some hours with Lucy, and surrendered to Judge Joseph Gary. The mainstream media campaign against the anarchists was intense, with the Chicago Tribune calling for executions and Texas newspapers revisiting the presumed scandal of Parsons leaving her marriage with Oliver Benton for Albert. Yep. The Waco Day headlined the story Beast Parsons, the sneaking snarl from some moral morass in which he hides, the misogynationalist, the murderer, the moral outlaw from whom the gallows calls. In response, Parsons visited her partner in jail with a journalist from the Tribune and said he had been romantically attached to Benton's wife, but she was a different person to Lucy. Parsons attended every day of the trial and was there with her partner, George Ingalls, Samuel Frieden, Adolph Fisher, Louis Ling, Michael Schwab, and August Spies were sentenced to death. Afterwards, she made a 7-week lecture tour in order to raise funds for the defendants and address more than 200,000 people in places such as Cincinnati, New York, and Philadelphia. In New Haven, Connecticut, she said, "You may have expected me to belch forth great flames of dynamite, but I stand before you with bombs in my hand if you are disappointed. You only have the capitalist press to thank for it," she spoke with the socialist Thomas J. Morgan at a rally in Sheffield, Indiana, which was just across the state line from Illinois, so that the police were unable to stop the event. In Columbus, Ohio, she was prevented from speaking and sent by the mayor to Franklin County Jail. When not lecturing, Parsons would visit her partner in jail, taking the children. She stopped her tailoring shop, and her family was forced to move out of their Indiana Street apartment to another one on Milwaukee Avenue. Okay? I want to ask y'all something about this Albert Parsons that she left her black husband, Oliver Benton, for. Do y'all really think that he just woke up and see? He was a Confederate soldier. He was a soldier for the Confederate States of America, right? He could have surrendered during the war. He could have deserted and went to the other side, but he didn't. He fought the entire war as a Confederate. And so do y'all really think that he just woke up and saw the light after the Civil War? No, he didn't. He didn't. What he saw is a different way to utilize so-called black people for political capital. This is the same thing that I told y'all about in my original Black Pill History Month live, that the Democrats in antebellum slavery used black people for political capital. The more slaves that they bought and kept them in slave states, the bigger their congressional representation was, irregardless of the 3/5. The 3/5 rule, the 3/5 compromise, irregardless of that. irregardless of it. Right? Still, 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 they found a way to utilize so-called black people for political capital, even though those black people could not get the vote. And so after black people were finally granted the vote, or black men anyway, with the 15th Amendment in 1868, they had to find another way to be able to use black people for political capital. Hence people like them. Hence people like them. Social Democrats. Never let them convince you of that party switch shit. It's bullshit. Never let them convince you of that. Black people turning to leftism was a very slow and very gradual decline. That was apparently first started by this woman and continued until it was with W.E.B. Du Bois. Now notice, like a lot of these black women that's lionized by the left, notice that they have a pattern of leaving their black husband for a white man. Maya Angelou, Angela Davis, Josephine Baker, Lena Horne. Well, now Lena Horne was always married to a white man. But notice there's a pattern with them. Right? Now, that black man that she was with didn't do her no harm. That black man, because, you know, they always talk about we trying to hold them back. That black man paid for her to go to school. And what did she do when she went to that school? Picked up the same type of black male-hating communistic ideology that from a leftist that she can get now. The Democrats were always the left. Don't bat that party switch myth bullshit that says, oh, well, you know, back then the Democrats were the conservatives and the Republicans were the left. No, that's not true. The Republicans were centrist, and back then that was a radical position. Statutory fairness based off of the law was a radical position back then, but that's at the end of the day centrism. It doesn't matter if it's to the right of somebody that's an absolute nutbag that thinks that we have to have an underclass, because that's what the Democrats' vision of this country was. A white administered ethno state with an underclass of, a white Anglo-Saxon managed ethno state with an underclass of blacks, the Siberians they brought over here, Catholics and Jews. That was their vision of this country. And so these two people were on the vanguard of socializing black people as communists. Now, don't you think it's strange? Let me find out when the CIO was started, because the American Federation of Labor, those was the ones that would beat up black men and shit to keep them from working. Like when them Pullman porters first started taking over, they came as scabs and they tried to kill them dudes. Let me see when the CIO. Yeah, it was founded in 1935. Top Dollar writes Trump is anything but a conservative. He's a pure capitalist, second generation immigrant from Germany. Huh. I thought his people was Scottish. Well, yeah, and that's fine too. But I would take capitalism over communism or socialism any day. That's fine. But the American left has racist roots. It does. Because when they was doing all this labor organizing, when some of these black people was getting jobs, they was showing up and beating them, stabbing them, bashing them up beside the head with bricks. Right? Showing up, bashing them upside the head with bricks. They did everything they could to stop to stop so-called black men from working. Matter of fact, most of the early days of these labor unions, that was their very reason for existence, to form as a collective to contest black men being able to work. Because remember what my grandfather said, he said when the Civil War ended, white men might have had all of the social position, but black men had the skill. And I keep telling y'all, connect these dots. The white middle class is a creation of the United States government. They had to help them with labor regulation. They had to help them with the Homestead Act. They had to help them with the GI Bill. They had to help them over and over and over and over again just to build them up to what they are today. But at the very vanguard of it was leftists like these. And that's the black pill right there. That's the black pill right there, is that these people, the only thing they did is find a sneakier way to use so-called black people for political capital. It was never about your rights. It was never about giving a voice to the voiceless. It was never about class struggles or labor or all of that bullshit that they try to sell you. That's the black pill. It's been a black pill PSA. Peace.